Boots, boots, moving up and down again. Boots, boots,
Man, man,
men, moving.
moving up and down.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm Brad.
Now Miguel.
And 28 years later, man, this is the review. It's taken us a while to get here, but this was one of my most anticipated movies, if not my most anticipated movie of the year. I absolutely adore, with everything in my heart and soul, the original 28 Days Later. It's maybe in my top... I don't know if I'd put it in my top 10. It's definitely in my top 20 favorite movies. Not horror movies, my favorite movies in general of all time. I think what Danny Boyle was able to achieve with that film was just nothing short of incredible. And Weeks is good. I don't like Weeks quite as much. Miguel and I have had conversations about why that is, and we'll get to that on the show. But Weeks doesn't have the same charm. I feel like it feels it's the same vibe, but something about it. It doesn't have the same weird artistic charm that the first one does. But I was obviously stoked when we found out that there was going to be a 28 years later coming out this season, and it just I was super stoked, and there were to say the least, there were some surprises, and there were some things that I did not expect that I got from the movie. And overall, I would say it was a very positive experience. But what about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, this was 18 years in the making, I guess, since 28 weeks later. I guess, relatively speaking, I mean, if you were to look it up on Google, I mean, like, what, 69%, like, say that they liked this movie.
Oh yeah, it's done really well.
Yeah, I'd say during its promo all the way up to the premiere, and then now with a couple of weeks after its release, not a couple of weeks, maybe about like a month. I would say yeah, this movie is definitely holding up just as well as the original, and definitely surpassing 28 weeks later, which again I think Brad can tell you from before that his opinions on 28 weeks later, which I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched 28 weeks later in like a long time, so I don't really remember what Jeremy Renner did just throughout that movie. But yeah.
I don't know. There's just something that the original has a very specific aesthetic, and it's weird and dreamlike, and it feels very specific of a movie. And Weeks has more of an action adventure type vibe. I mean, the elements are the same. It's still scary. There are scary moments. There are very tense emotional moments too. But it's just overall, it doesn't. I don't think it holds a candle to the first film. And I was excited for years. Obviously, I didn't. Here's the thing. I knew that they couldn't do the exact same thing. I expected some changes in the lore and in the characters, in the scenery, right? You can't do the same thing you've already done. But my hope was... what I'm saying is I tried to walk into the theater with an open mind. I knew it wasn't going to be the same, treading over the same ground we already have. I just wanted them to do justice to the original elements, to the original aesthetic, to the original vibe that makes me love that first film so much. And I think they did that overall. I think they accomplished what they were trying to in that regard. And they took some pretty big swings. One of the swings they took, man, was long and flaccid, but it was a swing. It was a friggin' swing, man.
Yep. Nope. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And we can get into the details of that. But overall, I think audiences have liked it. It's been a huge W for horror films. And I think it's done a justice to the franchise. And I am, for the record, excited to see what they do next. I'm intrigued, a little bit nervous. Just like a little bit of nervousness in there, because it was odd. There were some odd choices made too, but we'll we'll get into those in just a few minutes. Miguel has a birthday coming up. How you been, man?
Yeah, I feel 1 year older, I guess. I don't know.
1 year older.
Yep.
1 year older in the shit show we live in.
Yep, that is true.
Right.
Yeah. We're gonna celebrate
waking up.
We're gonna celebrate watching Superman. So
Yeah, we're gonna go see Superman this week. Yeah, we will. So we will have a Superman review. By the way, that kind of brings me a little bit of a channel update here. This is our first. I realized this, Miguel. I don't even know if you know this. This is our first episode of Let's Talk Movies in 5 months, which is insane.
5 months.
5 months. We did the watch along. We did the
definitely sound
28
like it.
days later watch along. Here's the thing. It's, you hear people say like they go through different seasons and chapters of life and whatever, and like this has just been a busy year, and it's been hard to sit and make content out and get it out to you guys. And we're hoping to change that. So essentially the idea for what we want to do moving forward is do 1 week we'll have a live stream on Saturday night, and then the next week we'll get some type of short form content out, whether that's both of us, whether that's me, whatever the case may be. The goal is to get something out. So I want to try to get back into doing this. It's just been, once you fall off, it's hard to hop back on, and it's just between work and kids and just living life. Like it's been a busy season. So I apologize for not getting content out. It's largely my fault, but we do want to get back on there. So that's kind of the schedule of what's going on. We'll have our Superman review. Fantastic Four comes out on Friday. I am increasingly excited for that. At first I was kind of like, I don't
Holy
know.
shit.
I was
think it's gonna be
super
over
leery
release
of it.
Twice this week.
I know. I was super leery of it, and then I was like, I've seen more of the footage that they put out, and I'm like, all right, okay,
You feeling more excited about it?
I like it. I am. I really am.
I don't know why people have been having
I think,
second thoughts on it. I mean, what? I still think it'll be fun. I don't care.
yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think the casting choices were well done. I'm intrigued. I am extremely intrigued by how this is going to lead into things that come after. I really am.
Yeah, I'd agree
And
with that.
I've been meaning, honestly, I want to go back and I want to rewatch Brave New World and Thunderbolts, and I want all of that to be kind of fresh in my mind, going into Fantastic Four, and then as we go into the next Spider-Man film, into Doomsday and Secret Wars, like I want to be prepared for all of that, because it does seem it has seemed relatively hard to follow, the whole MCU thing as of late, the last few years. It seems kind of discombobulated from itself,
Yeah,
At least the
I'd
Infinity
agree.
Saga felt like we were pushing towards something. It was different stories, and they had different characters, but it still felt like they were all kind of in the same realm. And it hasn't felt like that. But I think they may be getting back to it. I really think they may be. So,
Just like us.
well, just like us, they're hopping back on the train just like we are. So I am excited for Fantastic Four, and I've heard nothing but great things about Superman. My wife actually was like, Julie was like, I really want to go see Superman. Like, I think it looks pretty good, which she's a big Rachel Brosnahan fan as well. So,
Is that from like the Marvelous?
oh,
Mrs.
dude,
Maisel?
Maisel is awesome. Yeah, if you have not watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you are wasting your time. You need to go watch it. It's awesome. It's one of my favorite shows I've ever watched. It's really cool. So,
First, get Amazon, which I'm sure
yeah,
everybody has an
yeah.
Amazon, almost as if everyone has like a Spotify account.
yeah, you got to get it on Amazon. So 28 years later, man, we snagged these posters, which was pretty cool. It's got the theatrical poster, one of the theatrical posters, and then on the back of it, it's got the map of Linshire, or what's it? Linsfarn, a map of Linsfarn. I don't know.
Which honestly,
Wherever
I thought that was a pretty
wherever
cool,
they are.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool add-on that they did with that. If you weren't like at the movie theater looking for that map, or they weren't just like passing that around or anything, like we came upon that after the movie, and we were like,
We
"Yeah,
did.
we'll grab a poster." And then when we saw the
Yeah,
movie, but we were like, "Whoa, wow, that's pretty cool."
that
So
is pretty cool. Yeah, and it's a cool little like additional piece to like put things together in the movie. But
mm-hmm.
um, so overall, my biggest compliment to the movie, which I like to start my reviews with my
The
biggest
good things.
compliment or my biggest positive. Um, I This movie surprised me. That's my biggest compliment, and it surprised me in ways that I didn't necessarily expect it to. I expected it, like I said, to have the same vibe with The Infected, kind of, and the aesthetic, um, the dreamy, weird, um, that just real artistic vibe that the original film had. That's what I wanted this film to be. That's what I wanted this film to have. Um, and for the most part, it did have that. But it also did some things that surprised me with the excuse me, with the characters. I didn't. There were characters that I ended up liking much more than I anticipated. There were characters that went a completely different direction than I thought that they were going to go, both in good ways and bad. And some of the things with the infected and the choices made there, I kind of had to wrestle with. In a way, I'm glad we're doing this review a few weeks after the movie's released because I really, really, really have come to like some of the things. Like this was one of those movies where like it needed to marinate a little bit after we walked out of the theater. Like Miguel can tell you, there were some things that happened, which we're gonna get to those spoiler moments in just a minute. But there were some things that I was like, that was weird, right? Like I don't know how I felt about that. And the more I've thought about it, I'm like, I kind of dig it. Like it's really really neat. Um, Specifically the characters that I'm talking about. The little boy, Spike. I thought his name was Spike, right? I'm
Yeah.
remembering that correctly. Yeah, Spike. Who Alfie Williams played. He did a really really spectacular job. Like usually, I always find it hard for a kid. I feel like you can tell when a kid is trying to carry a film, and that can go one of two ways. That can be, it can surprise you and they just do a really kick-ass amazing job, or it's kind of like it's they're trying but they're a young actor. Alfie Williams did a really really good job carrying this movie and portraying this coming of age story. I mean, at the end of the day, 28 years later is a coming of age story.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Am I
you
wrong
know
to think that
it
28 years later is my man's like first like major motion picture?
I don't know what I feel like he's done a few other things. Let's see. Let me click on his IMDb. I feel like that'll have the most accurate. Yeah, this was his
Sounds like
first
it.
like major thing. Yeah, which is awesome. He did a couple of other TV series, but this was his first major thing. Um, I
Good for
I don't
him,
know.
man.
He had this kid-like innocence at the beginning of the film. He had never been outside of their little community that's separated from the mainland in the UK. He is dealing with, his mother being sick, and his dad's trying to kind of hype him up and get him ready for the things that he's going to face in this area of the world that they're living in that's been quarantined. And he just, I don't know, by the end of the film, like there is a real transformation that happens with that character. You know what I mean? And it's very obvious. You can see it in his face and his facial expressions and how he's reacting to not just the infected, but to the things that are happening. And I mean, at the beginning of the movie, if you'd have told Spike's character that he would be on his own, like choosing to go out on his own into the quarantine zone, and to be fighting infected and doing, I mean, he'd have been like, are you what are you talking, you know what I mean? That wasn't the character, but he goes through such a transformation in this movie, and I really really think he did a spectacular job. What were your thoughts on Alfie as the lead?
Well, I thought Alfie was really really well done in his portrayal of Spike. And yeah, I agree. It was definitely a coming of age type story, which is very typical with younger actors when they're doing a film like this. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that he was like ill-equipped to deal with what was happening. I mean, Jamie, who is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, I mean, age 11, I think is what they said in the movie. Like he's actually was,
I think he's 12,
yeah, like
11 or 12, one of the two.
younger than what he was supposed to be to be beyond the wall. But it seems like Jamie was able to teach him very well on how to adapt and survive in terrain that he has very little experience in. So when he first comes out, I mean, obviously not a well not really versed in living out beyond the wall, but
Hmm.
throughout the next like hour and a half of the movie, uh Alfie, Spike, pretty much takes his mother into like the complete unknown, an environment he has known nothing about, for a
Yeah.
for a hail mary attempt at getting her help. So I mean, for the stakes and the gravity of the situation that's being put at hand, um, Alfie does a really good job, and for a young actor to pretty much take the adversity that he's you know about to
Yeah.
experience. So
Well, it's interesting. His relationship with his dad and his mom are really, really interesting. First of all, one of the surprises was Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. I, first of all, this is nothing against Aaron Taylor Johnson. I actually thought he did a really, really great job in that role. I did not expect to dislike that character by the end of the movie. And by the end of the movie, I was like, that guy's a dick. I was like, I don't like him at all. Like he just, the choices he makes, like your wife is at home sick, like very clearly sick
hmm
with, well, and, whether, I mean, it ended up being breast cancer, but like, I mean, could have been anything. Um, and like you're off like sleeping with some other lady, and just the brashness of lying about what Alfie had done in the quarantine zone, just like everything about him, he just came off of this like brash, pompous dick that I didn't expect that character to be like that. I really didn't. I expected him to be more of the caring father that this like, what we had seen in the trailers and how the trailers kind of portrayed it, which again, it's why you can never fully trust a movie trailer. But I expected it to be this warm story between father and son, and it didn't necessarily go that way. It ended up being a warmer story with his mother, who, I'm gonna be real, I think that Jodie Comer was probably the standout of this movie. Her and Ralph Fiennes, I just like, those two characters specifically. I did not expect to fall in love with both of those characters, and I genuinely did. Like,
yeah,
I think her portrayal of the of her with like the Dory short term memory loss kind of thing, um, and uh, her realization once they get to once they get to the end of their journey together, her and her son, and she realizes that she's going to die. She has breast cancer. It has spread to her brain, probably throughout the rest of her body as well. Her time is limited as it is, and once we reach that point, like it was like I was in a different movie. It just absolutely blew me away. And that was kind of what I was talking about earlier with the surprise. I didn't expect to be that surprised by any of the characters, and specifically Jodie Comer and Ralph Fiennes blew me away. And we'll talk about Ralph Fiennes and the Bone Temple more in just a few minutes, but just again focusing on kind of the family aspect of it. Spike was a fantastic character. Alfie Williams carried him really well. Aaron Taylor Johnson surprised me because I really didn't think that he was. I didn't think that character would go in that direction. Do you know what I mean? It was just this rashness that I didn't expect. And he taught him very well, as you just said. He did, he did go through the steps of teaching him, this is the world we live in, and these are the things that you're going to have to learn to do, essentially, with killing the infected and, hunting, whatever the case may be. um even when they found the walker, I say walker like we're talking The Walking Dead, the zombie infected, whatever you want to call it, tied up with the J carved in its stomach. um you know when we found that infected, and he was being really harsh to Spike when he was saying to kill it, he was just being very, like, he seems very matter of fact when he's trying to teach him, which
Well,
makes
I think
sense because obviously you're living in the apocalypse, so
yeah.
you know it's life or death in the moment.
No, I agree, and I think James' direction in teaching Spike uh, very much correlates with how you know the franchise has progressed because in 28 days later, 28 weeks later, like you're talking about like very new to the virus and
Yeah.
trying to like at least survive or trying to like at least get back to normal from the virus or at least try to survive at that point. And now that we're at 28 years later, I mean, the infected are very much just a part of the everyday life. Now that London has been, or sorry, the UK has been completely isolated,
Hmm.
so everybody within that country has to survive with the infected, and now the infected no longer seem to be
Right.
like humans or like the zombies. You just became more like an animalistic um,
Yeah.
threat that just that hunts them, same as like Neanderthals and saber-toothed tigers or any other like apex predator that's out there. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
Jamie's portrayal of trying to teach Spike on how to survive and adapt in this world is
Right.
very much a tribute to like how the world has or how this country has attempted to adapt with these infected, and his attitude definitely matches with that because he's so blasé with just the actual act of killing, quote unquote, a person, but at the same time they don't view the infected as a person. So I think Spike just now getting out, I think he still has or at least senses some sort of humanity in them. But Jamie is just like, no, like
Right.
these are just
Right.
these are just animals, so you have to kill them, almost as like you're killing a boar, like just kill them.
Yeah.
And
Well, and he even says that to him. He says, like when they're in the house and Spike is hesitating to kill the tied up infected, and he's starting to obviously break out of the rope and whatever else he's tied in, and he's hesitating, and Jamie even says something like, you know, it's not human anymore. Like once the virus takes over, like the person is gone. Like it's just the rage virus now. That's all that there is. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, and it does make sense with the brashness, um, and kind of the harshness, because it is life or death, and it is a life or death situation, and you have to approach it from the like the minute by minute. Like you're gonna have to make decisions and do things. You're gonna have to be able to make difficult decisions on the fly.
yeah,
Whether that's killing a person, whether that's killing an infected. You have to be able to do that because they move quickly. Two things I wanted to touch on that kind of sparked in my head when you were talking. Um, Again, on the topic of surprises, the whole UK thing and what they've chosen to do there was really, really interesting. At first when they announced this, I thought, okay, maybe they got it under control at the end of 28 weeks later, and then it's gonna go global, and like that's what's gonna happen. 28 years later is going to be about the virus resurfacing after almost 30 years of being gone.
mm-hmm.
And they didn't go in that direction. And then when I found out that the rest of the world was okay and just living life normally as we are, but the UK had been quarantined for 28 years. That intrigues me. There's a lot of potential there for these next two films, and I'm very interested to see what they do with that. One of my favorite moments of the film was when we got the agent that his boat had wrecked. Eric, I believe, was his name. Or as he says, Eric. I think he says Eric. I think he says Eric or something like that in the film. But he's describing the outside
I
world
think he's
to
French, right?
Alfie Williams' character Spike. Yes, and he's like, yeah, you don't know what an iPhone is. Like, you don't like he doesn't know what smartphones are. He doesn't understand the concept of delivery drivers or Amazon or playing video games, or like he doesn't get that. So anytime you can play around with two very different worlds colliding, like I think that's really interesting. And that whole middle section of the movie when Eric when Eric was around, I found that really interesting. This whole concept of the UK being quarantined. I really want to see where they go with that. Have you seen? So I haven't had the opportunity to peruse it a whole lot, but there is like a secret website that went along with the marketing that they have somehow people cracked the code and figured out where it is. And the website is like these audio clips and files of a whistleblower that is trying to get information about what's actually happening in the UK out to the rest of the world on the internet. So that almost implies to me that A, the rest of the world has zero idea what's really happening inside of the UK. So either the United Nations and NATO is lying to them and they have just completely sealed off England from the rest of the planet, or B, they're telling them that, oh, those people are fine. It's just it's a safety precaution, whatever. Like, I don't know. They've probably, we could imagine that they've closed the airspace probably. Nobody can fly over the UK, I would imagine. And we see at multiple points that, when they're trapped in the attic at the beginning in the first third of the film, after they're out of arrows and things like that, and we know that the Alpha and the horde of infected are out in the woods searching for them and hunting. We know that there are Coast Guard and Navy ships from different countries that basically just constantly circulate the island to patrol it and make sure that nothing is escaping. I find all of that really, really interesting, and it leaves a lot of different places that they could go for the next two films, and I really hope that they utilize that. There was actually a really, really cool fan theory. We know that Jim from the first film is returning, and I can only hope that Selena and Frank's daughter, what's her name? I'm blanking. Hannah. I hope that Selena and Hannah will appear as well, but who knows? There was a really cool fan theory that what if Jim is the whistleblower trying to reach the rest of the world and get information out about what's happening in the UK, and like what the United Nations and NATO is not telling people, which I think is really, really cool. I don't know that they'll do that, but I think that would be a really cool way to reintroduce that character. What I don't here's what I'll say what I was about to say later. I have thoughts on what I don't want them to do with Jim, but I'm sure most of you, if you've seen the movie, know what I'm about to say, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. You know what I mean, though, about the potential for what they could do with that, with the whole UK concept and the rest of the world. I mean, you could potentially take part of those last two films and explore the virus escaping to the rest of the world. What if somehow the quarantine zone breaks? They break the quarantine, people escape, infected escape. I don't know. Do they have, other than the ships patrolling, I mean, do they have military personnel from different countries patrolling and making sure? I mean, I don't know. Like, how, there's a lot of unknowns and questions involving the quarantine zone thing. But I find it very interesting, and I like
It
it.
seems very cut and dry with the military in that aspect, because the Eric pretty much said that
Eric.
the second they got on the island, no one was gonna pick them up too. Like they're pretty much left for dead. Like if anyone
Yeah.
shipwrecks there, they're kind of like stuck there. So like even if like
Hmm.
Coast Guard military
Yeah.
seamen just happen to like crash land there, like no one's coming to save them. So they're stuck there. They're
Right.
just adding to the pile. So they got that
Adding
shit
to the
really,
pile.
yeah, they got that shit locked down, very tight. So for me to think that maybe Jim's one of the person that's trying to escape, um, I don't know, could be a possibility, or maybe Jim has already escaped and he's trying to let people know what it is. So I don't know, maybe the next film is him trying to like get back or maybe enter,
Yeah.
because for someone to try to escape, damn near impossible. Let like
Probably not.
in general. So, but the idea of someone trying to get in seems really easy. People seem to be able to do it by accident. If you look at Eric, which, by the way,
Yeah.
if you want to talk about like confusion right now, there is way too many Jims in this franchise now. Because
There are.
you have Killian Murphy as Jim.
Do you,
You have
do you want to go ahead and talk about the Jimmy thing?
sure, but like I just first off, yeah, because I was thinking that because I was reading through the casting list and like, holy shit! Like imagine the sequel to this if like they start coming out, because you have Killian Murphy as Jim, and then you also have you know, Jack O'Connell who's playing Sir Jimmy Crystal, and that
Yeah.
and then also you have that. I was trying to read who this person is supposed to be, but
Yeah.
do you know Erin
So
Kellyman? She played I forgot what her name was. The Power Broker? No, not the Power Broker. Someone in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Her name is Jimmy Inc. So I'm just thinking to myself like, Jesus Christ! Imagine if you see three of them in the fucking film at the same time. Like the amount of confusion is gonna be like insane.
yeah.
So
So here's the thing about the Jimmy stuff. Um, one of my fears with what they're doing with the next two films, with the Bone Temple, and obviously we don't know. Danny Boyle has said that they're trying to finance the third film right now, and to get it greenlit. One of my fears is that, this movie is very British, and that's awesome. That's great. I love it. Like it totally works for that vibe. That's great.
how else?
But
How
one
could it be
of
anything else?
one of my fears is that some of the nods to things are going to be so overwhelmingly specific to British culture and to English culture in the UK that we as dumb down home Americans aren't going to get it. Like that's just through. I know, but people in other countries, I don't know that it's going to be as clearly obvious to them.
I don't know.
So
Like, if you're-
here's essentially. I found real quick. I found this on Reddit, and I know Reddit's an awful place to get information, but I thought it was somebody's explanation for the Jimmies, and I wanted to share it because at first, like everyone in the days leading up to Miguel and I seeing the film, everybody was like, "Wait till you see the ending, man. You're just gonna be like, what was that?" Like it's just, the tone just switches on a dime, and it's just like it just rips the rug out from under everything else you've watched. So this was a really good explanation for the ending and the Jimmy's thing. And this explanation said, this is a group of feral kids who grew up in the zombie apocalypse and raised on 90s children's TV shows. They dress like Jimmy Savile, which apparently Jimmy Savile, I don't know the specifics, was like a television, TV, late night type host personality, something similar to like I would assume like a Stephen Colbert or a Jimmy Kimmel or a Jimmy Fallon, Jon Stewart, something like a late night talk show host. Who I guess had all these years of like sexual misconduct allegations and whatever. Again, don't know the specifics, but I believe there's partially a nod to him. But like they rock out to the Teletubbies stuff. They fight like Power Rangers.
Rock out.
I know, and we see that at the beginning of the film, right? Like we see the opening of the movie, which we haven't even touched on yet, which was odd. That was one thing that I didn't completely love the opening to this film. And the 28
Spoilers.
franchise has a pretty decent. Well, it's true. I'm just being honest here. The 28 franchise has a pretty decent track record with
I don't
insane
know. It was pretty
openings.
brutal, man. They pretty much slaughtered like
Like,
5 kids for an
I don't
unfortunate
know if
opening.
there's
That
a
shit is pretty brutal.
I don't know if there's a better opening than Weeks. I will say Weeks, the opening takes the cake. The infected running over the hill, the guy leaving his wife when she's trying to save the kid. Like, there's just
Mm-hmm.
like that opening is insane. The opening in the first film when we see the animal rights activist trying to break the chimpanzees out when the guy they're infected with what rage, like that whole thing, that whole sequence was really really well done. um but this one just I like it was brutal. I liked the brutality of it a lot, I did, but it felt very disconnected from everything else, and I understand why. I understand that at the end it was supposed to come back around, but until you pointed out to me that that's the kid from the first one because of the cross necklace that the priest, his dad, whoever, whatever, gave him, I was like, oh, like it didn't click because we had already seen so much that happened after that. It was like I just didn't connect at first for me. And I think that's partially why the ending didn't work. It wasn't necessarily the absurdity of the shift in tone and the characters like "Hoo-yah!" like Power Ranger fighting, It it was just that it felt so disconnected to everything else that happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um so that was my issue with the Jimmy thing. Um but what I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's too niche of them to try to do this weird like 90s anime style like cult group thing? Like is that too weird and niche and odd for them to randomly throw in the last like 5 minutes of the film?
So I'll talk about like their decision on like the whole on the extravagance of the Jimmy Crew, but to respond to your claim that you're worried that UK pop tropes are going to be too niche for the movie, for the franchise. I mean, I don't know. Like the whole point of me enjoying a film is like knowing more about like I don't know culture and all that other jazz. So
Mm,
that's partially why like I enjoy watching European films and British films because I don't know it just peeps into a culture that like I don't really know much about. You know,
yeah.
terms that I don't know. I know little, and like just funny little things that happen in different countries that we just don't deal with. But
Yeah.
the Jimmy scene, I'd say that if we were gonna talk like the opening scene, like I I didn't really have any issues with it. I thought the opening scene was pretty good, all things considered. It's I mean it starts brutal as hell,
Yeah.
and sticks with the theme of a kid being introduced to the rage virus and just them seeing the brutality of it and how it's just taking people left and right, with including Jimmy, I guess losing relatives or friends in this, and then later on, pretty much watching his dad pretty much accept his fate as a I don't know, what's it called, biblical biblical end of times kind of thing, which is weird, and just seeing
But
him
he,
like turn into a zombie. So it's just interesting for me to see Jimmy react to it at such a young age, and then we have Alfie, who spends the next hour and 45 minutes just being introduced to the rage virus. So I think it's interesting for me at least to see the parallels with Jimmy and Alfie and how the rage virus has affected them and how it will affect them through the entire life. So, I mean, if I were to be a betting man, like if you were to look at Alfie and see what he went through and think, and then look at Jimmy and see what he's turned into, like just right off the back, Like it's
There's
interesting to see
parallels
like
there, yeah.
yeah, it's interesting to see parallels, and given what we are suspecting from the fucking um reference to this BBC or pop icon, like it's gonna be really interesting to see how Alfie deals with Jimmy, and considering they're both like I guess quote unquote children of the rage virus, you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
grew up with the rage virus as opposed to people who were
Well,
already grown up dealing with the rage virus.
yeah, it's almost like, and I don't know if you caught this, but there was, they obviously they're watching Teletubbies and Power Rangers and whatever else at the beginning of the film, and then there's this moment where right before Spike goes to leave to go to the quarantine zone, he leaves his Power Ranger on his nightstand in his bedroom, and I thought that was kind of I thought about that after with the Jimmy thing. Um, and kind of how it all relates. There was also, you know, the thing that struck me about the opening, and I get it, like if his dad was like a religious fanatic, whatever, like I don't fully understand. But when the whole like, yes, my children, as he's like about to be like eaten alive and like beaten up until he's infected, like that was really odd to me. Like it didn't. It just. I don't know. Something about the opening. Maybe I need to go back and watch it again. Like I don't know if I was focused on the wrong things or if I'm just overthinking it. It just it was brutal and it was shot very well and it was scary, but it didn't fully make sense to me, and maybe it will in the next film. I don't know. I do think I'm not shooting it down. I'm not saying it won't work. I'm just saying it concerns me that like we're leaning so heavily into something that so many people like. My fear is that a lot of people that don't get the pop culture reference is gonna be they're gonna be like, what? Like, you know what I mean? That dude on the cowboy dude on Tic Tac. What? Tic
Yeah.
Tac. I just said Tic Tac. I freaking hate myself. Tic Tac.
Well, I mean, again,
That's
like
a dad moment if I've ever seen one.
people that are gonna go see 28 years later the Bone Temple, like
The
they
Bone
definitely are.
Temple.
They're definitely doing their due diligence in the film, if that makes sense. Whether you're a
Right.
casual viewer or not, um,
That's
you
fair.
know,
That's
I'm
very
sure
fair.
they're
Yeah.
doing their due diligence to just know more about the movie. And if anything, like for it to be that niche, I guarantee you that shit's gonna be like overly explained in the film. Like, I mean, let's be honest. If this is
Yeah.
being like advertised to the states, like again, you're talking about a British
People
pop icon. So like,
people who
yeah,
are
it's gonna
interested
be
will research it.
yeah, essentially.
I
And
get
whether or
that.
not they do or don't, like, I'm sure the film's gonna tell a decent story with or without
Yeah.
the exposition of what Jimmy is and the significance of it with
Right.
British history. So
Yeah. I will say one of the other big surprises in this film, I was very nervous for Ralph Fiennes's character, for Dr. Kelson. I didn't
can we
know what
agree
they were
that
going to do with that.
can we agree that he's
What?
probably like one of our favorite characters in this film?
Oh, he was my favorite character. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. Dr. Kellen was literally. I was most nervous about him. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this weird bone dude. I don't know if I don't know if I'm gonna like it. It felt really weird and disconnected from like the things I wanted out of the movie. Literally ended up being my favorite part. I'm not exaggerating. And props to Danny Boyle and Alex Garland for being able to write a script and write a story that surprises someone like me who kind of wanted something very specific from this movie, and I walked out happy that I didn't get some of what I wanted, because I was like, man, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about like what that could be. This movie, let me start here. This movie is kind of in three distinct chunks, right? There's the first section, which is kind of this coming of age, you know, Spike learning from his dad, they're going out into the quarantine zone. We're getting reintroduced to the infected, to the concept of the alphas and how they've evolved, and kind of how the infected have been living all of this time since the first outbreak that we saw in 28 Days Later. And then there's the second film, or the second chunk of the film, kind of the part B, where Alfie decides to kind of, excuse me, Spike decides to start taking matters into his own hands, right? He's kind of fed up with the fact that his dad won't seek some type of medical care for Isla, his mother. He's had that confrontation with his dad, whatever, where he chooses to take a chance and use the information, use what his dad has taught him to take her out and go find this doctor that everyone's warned him about, right? So there's this middle section of the film, which is a different vibe entirely, right? The first third of it is very horror based. It feels the most to me like the first film. Then there's kind of this second act that feels, there's some levity in there, there's some more action in there, right? It's got a little bit more of the vibe of Weeks. There's a little bit more going on between the characters. And then there's the third act of the movie. The Dr. Kellen stuff, dude. I expected there to be some kind of twist, even when they first showed up, and he was really kind. He was really kind to them. I even told Miguel, I said, oh, this guy's going to do something. He is going to stab them in the back hard. There's going to be some kind of psycho plot twist. And he's going to end up being the main villain of the film.
Yeah, because I was drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah.
He was just a genuinely nice dude. Weird. I mean, bonkers. The dude lives in left field weird. But he's genuinely kind in his own weird way. The whole explanation of Memento Mori and, this idea that he's building a monument for the dead, right? This idea that both humans who have died, both uninfected people who have died and infected, he even says, the entire film, there's, as you said earlier, there's this kind of constant theme of not referring to the infected as people anymore. The virus is taken over. They're no longer human beings. They're something else. And he doesn't necessarily see it that way. He still sees them as people who got sick. And even though they turned into something else, he still take skulls of infected, and he's their eyes saw things, their mouths talked to people that they cared about and loved, and they still had a life before they were infected with the virus. And he just turned out to be really, really caring and compassionate in his own weird, kind of screwed up way. And I really, really, I adored that character and what Ralph Fiennes did with him.
Yeah, my guy was a Dundee of the 28 weeks
for real, man.
One with nature and the rage virus.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I didn't expect there to be this heartfelt, really pull at your heartstrings thing.
Hallmarky.
I didn't expect a Hallmark moment. The moment when from the time that they realize that when he does the breast exam and he realizes that he feels under her arms and he tells her I think you have cancer, unfortunately, because of the situation we're in, there's nothing we can do. He thinks it's spread, whatever. That whole sequence from the time that he is very merciful and he kills her. She obviously says that's what she wants. There's the baby that they've found, which we're going to talk about that in just a little bit too. It's really, really interesting that all of that transpired, because I didn't expect any of that. But the moment that Spike takes her skull and puts it at the top of the bone temple, and we see the sparks coming up from the fire, I mean, that whole moment, I was almost in tears. It just, I did not expect that type of moment out of this movie. And weirdly enough, it was my favorite sequence, I think. I think it was maybe the best, one of the best things about the film was this emotional thing, a son having to say goodbye to his mother, and, this really compassionate guy who's just trying to do the right thing and help people and help a kid through probably the most difficult thing he's ever going to go through. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
just it's nuts, and I didn't expect it. It was very artistic. It was very emotional. It was extraordinarily well done, and huge props to Alex Garland and Danny Boyle for being able to pull that off. I mean, I didn't expect that, but it was exceptionally well done. It was really really well done.
Yeah, and I would agree with the sections that you were talking about with the the vast split between themes in this film. And yeah, I'd agree. The Hallmark section, calling it a Hallmark section,
I know.
kind of
I
is
feel like
doing
that
it like a
cheapens it.
yeah. It's just I'd say it has a very like there's a lot of humanity in this part
Yes.
of the
Yes.
film, and I think that for people to feel like they felt like that was taking them out of the film. Um, I feel like it was very necessary to put it in this film, just because the beginning of the film was very much a full throttle of how we were treating the infected. And I'm not trying to act like a fucking like rage virus sympathizer. By no means am I thinking that,
Yeah.
but I think the film was definitely pushing the narrative that like these infected just needed to be eradicated,
Right.
and just solely because of the fact that they're not people anymore. And while that is correct, like by no means I'm not trying to say save all of them. Like that's fucking stupid. But I think it's foolish for us to think that we can abandon our humanity whenever we are trying to deal with people who have the rage virus. Like just because they lost their humanity doesn't mean that we need to lose ours in
Yeah.
how we,
Right.
go throughout, the world. Yeah, I guess no, not in the world, but just like in Great Britain, I guess. But Ralph Phineas, Dr. Ian Kelson, really was I guess not a smack in the face, but just like a refocus onto what it is that we're trying to survive for, which is the humanity aspect of it, and just kind of looking at the idea of death at a more humanistic approach, as opposed to when you die, you just become a rage virus, or dying is
Yeah.
like you could die. You have a better chance of dying from the rage virus than anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we first saw the Bone Temple, I told I told Brad like this definitely sounds like something that like um uh Spike and his mom was gonna have to like try to fight his way out, but then it becomes
Hmm.
like their own monument, especially for the mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
It's don't get me wrong. It's weird, right? Like
mm,
it's not. I think it does a few things. It is odd, and it's an odd choice. It's an odd thing. I mean, if you're gonna try and pay a monument to the dead, obviously he's a doctor. He's compassionate about people. I understand, right? But also, it does. This whole sequence does a few things. It gives the movie, for me, I feel like it gives this movie a soul. I mean, it would be one thing, they could have just made a horrifying, bloody, gory film that just slaps you in the face with Samson's schlong from top to bottom.
which by the
And
way, I never
they,
really felt that this was all that gory. I wouldn't say this is a very gory
no,
film.
it was a very, it was classy in terms of the horror aspects. Um, but, what the hell is that? It's a bug crawling on me. Um, but I feel like this whole sequence with Spike and his mother and the baby and Dr. Kelson it gave this movie a soul in a way that I didn't expect it to. Even the first two films don't necessarily, they do in their own way, but this was deep. This was deeper. Because maybe because it was a child, I think there's always kind of this thing where, what's the only other thing pretty much as powerful that would balance the concept of rage, which is love, right? You know, um, Jim thinks. I know it sounds ridiculous when you say it, but it's not, and it's powerful when you use it in that way, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
in the first film, Jim thought he had lost everything, right? Selena was really cynical about the situation. She didn't really have a lot of hope. She was just basically just surviving to survive, right?
Mm.
And then she finds Jim and she finds Hannah and they link up and they kind of become a family, right? You've got the brother and sister dynamic in 28 Weeks Later, and the whole thing with the guy and his wife, right? Like then you have this thing with Spike and his mother. And Dr. Kelson being so kind and compassionate to him, he's kind enough. He also could have said, you have terminal cancer, sorry. And that would be it, right? But I feel like it was an act of love and an act of compassion to be like, I have the like medical materials to essentially euthanize you. Like it will be a painless, kind way to go rather than just letting this cancer eat you from the inside out. And you basically, I mean, she was already starting to kind of lose her mind, right? Like she was forgetting things. She was confused. Like she would have just gotten to the point where she was just confused 24/7 and wasn't with it anymore.
Mm.
So obviously he showed a lot of grace and compassion and love, um, in euthanizing her, but also Spike kind of in this moment of that moment when he is handed her skull and he chooses when he says choose a place for her. I only hear Voldemort. It's so funny. Like every time I see him in anything, I'm like, God, you're Voldemort. Like that's who I see. Anyways, but the moment that he places her skull on the um on top of the bone temple, right when he climbs up there, that was kind of the moment where I was like, this is the coming of age story coming to fruition, right? Like this, like he has blossomed into something else, right? His character has now really grown up a lot in a very short amount of time. And he's got this baby that he's got to keep safe all the way back to, the shelter. He even protected Dr. Kelson, which I was so scared, dude. When Samson grabbed Dr. Kelson, I was like, no, 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 no. Because at that point, I had come to
I
really like
wasn't.
the character.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I didn't
wasn't
want the character to
expecting.
die. Like,
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to like survive this film, like at all. And
I'm really
seeing
glad he
how
did,
much,
though. Really
yeah,
glad.
no kidding, no kidding. It's just the fact that like it's just the fact that Dr. Ian just he's just like, yes, he like understands the humanity of it and like acknowledges, like these people who have the rage virus are still people, but like he's a little too blasé about, you know, the rage of people, because like he just got his shit rocked, and he was just like, oh, he's just at it again or something like that, or just
Yeah,
like,
he was like, I'll take him back out there later. Like, and he was
yeah.
like, it's like, what? Like, just freaking
He
kill him.
sounds, yeah, he sounds like a horse that just got out of the stable and he's like, I gotta take you
Well,
back into the fence, or just like,
so
it's just, yeah.
we haven't really touched on the infected a whole lot yet, intentionally. Again, we've talked a lot about surprises in on this episode and things that I didn't expect
You
in
know,
both good ways and bad ways.
not that much rage virus people, by the way. I felt that way.
N- but what we got was good. I didn't feel like I never felt like there weren't enough or there needed to be more, right? Um, one of the things that I didn't expect but ended up liking was the concept of the alpha thing. I didn't, when I first learned that that was happening, I was kind of like, I'm picky about zombie stuff, and yes, I've made a video about this. You can come at me all you want in the comments. The infected in 28 days later, and 28 weeks later, and 28 years later are zombies. Eat me like they are 100%. I know George Romero wouldn't agree with me. Whatever. His zombies didn't weren't 100% cohesive either in his films, you know. Um, but I'm pretty. I have very specific ideas of like what I want a zombie to be. Essentially, you know, I don't necessarily mind whether they run or whether they walk. I think they're great versions of both of those things. I think for something like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead or 28 Days Later, I think it works really, really well. I think for what they did with, you know, something like The Walking Dead or with, you know, the normal zombies in Resident Evil, right? And I know Resident Evil kind of goes balls to the wall with what they do with the infected anyways, but you know, I think there are great versions of both different styles of zombies.
Mm.
What I'm not a fan of is, for example, what Zack Snyder did with Army of the Dead. I There's something about them like communicating and using weapons and like they have their own society. Like there's something about that that I don't really like. It seems too I don't know. It seems too Mad Maxy for me. Um like the idea here is like, I mean, let's go back to the premise of the franchise, right? Like there is a virus that has infected people and just unleashed rage on them, right? They eat you, they bite you, they hit you, they violently murder you and get you infected with this virus, right? That's the purpose. Same kind of thing with The Walking Dead or with The Last of Us, right? You know, there are great versions of different infected, and what they've done with these infected, you know, what they did in the first two films at least, I thought were really, really interesting and really, really cool. The concept of the alpha thing, I wasn't sure what I thought of it. I ended up liking it for the most part.
It's not over the
The I
top like Zack Snyder's
Exactly.
Alphas.
It
That's all.
like yes, I know there are similarities, and people are going to be like, "Well, there's similarities. They can communicate." Blah blah blah. I understand, but it's not super over the top, right? Like I don't need to see them communicating, and I don't think they're communicating in the same ways either. They still seem kind of lifeless and just barbaric, for lack of a better word. Like they're just feral, essentially.
After
You know
this,
what I
I'm
mean?
gonna
They
watch
they
Army of
really
the
are.
Dead.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that film, to be honest, and
I kind of liked it.
it's weird because I really like Zack Snyder and I really liked what he did with Dawn of the Dead. I thought he did a really just spectacular job with that film. But for some reason, I wasn't a fan of Army. I didn't think they. I don't know. The zombies didn't do it for me in that film. Anyways,
Hmm.
um, but overall I liked what they did with the infected. They moved the same. The concept, I mean, realistic. If they've been living out in the wilderness for 28 years, most of them probably do not have any clothes on anymore. Either they've ripped or torn or fallen, you know, whatever the case may be. You know, most of them were not wearing many clothes, if any at all. Samson was
Pretty sure everybody
definitely
was.
not.
I'm pretty sure everybody was straight naked,
Samson
which
was
makes sense. Yeah,
strapped.
yeah.
Bro, I
For
wow.
look, man,
Mm.
my man, Danny. Like, n- I'm sure each scene probably costs like I don't know, a couple $1,000. A scene. So like,
How much of the
if we
budget went to
were,
Samson's
if we
dick?
were, if we were to guess, this is probably like not, by any means part of the show, or was I intending to say, but my man Samson's, Chris Lewis Perry, like his schlong
Schlong.
must be like I don't know, a couple grand, like a worth of film, I guess, because
Uh,
Danny must have just been like straight on to his straight dong, like at least
Dude,
5 or 6 times.
I didn't expect to see it as much as we did. Like,
Yeah.
bro, like
And this
every
isn't a
time we
gay
saw
thing,
Samson,
okay?
it was
Like,
like
don't come at me right now with that
just
shit.
it was
I was just
insane.
very surprised. I was,
It's just
one
hilarious.
by the
Uh,
blessings that my man, Mr. Perry, was bestowed, and also the amount of times, Danny decided to just keep letting the film just shoot on him. Like,
it's funny because
damn.
obviously Miguel and I are extremely whatever, we're extremely inappropriate together. But
Oh, okay.
but
Great way to say it.
in the theater, the moment when Dr. Kelson shoots Samson with the morphine and he kind of stops in his tracks and he's loopy and whatever and he's standing there and Dr. Kelson kind of like sheepishly walks around him and he's like, this is Samson, and he's like, I shot him. He was like, I've learned that, morphine, just like it would for a person, basically halts them, like it puts them in this comatose state where you can move around them and escape them and then they'll wake up a number of hours later and they're fine, other than the fact that they're infected with the virus that literally ended a country, but whatever. Um, but like, it was funny the moment that Dr. Kelson walks around and his dick is just hanging there. Like Miguel and I in the theater full of people were both like just cracking up. Like, I can't believe they showed it as much as they did in this movie. Like, they made it a point to show all of Samson just all
Yeah.
the time.
I don't know whose decision
Like,
that was, but I mean, I guess bravo to you, I guess, for getting that accomplished.
hilarious. Um, anyways, the stuff with Dr. Kellen kind of normalizing the infected, just that, like, it's just kind of a fact, like, yeah, there's infected. Like, he just kind of works around him, essentially. Like, he just works around
Mm-hmm.
Samson.
Mm.
He said he's lived in this area for a few years now, or he's roamed this area for a few years now. Like it's kind of funny that they just freely roam and he just works around them and lives around them. Like it's an animal. Like it's like there's a bobcat that lives near your house, and you just live around them. They're there like a squirrel in your yard. Um, except these squirrels are trying to violently murder you. But I thought that was really interesting. The whole concept of drugging them. He literally drugs the zombies to to get away from them. That's kind of hilarious.
It's
Um,
very smart. I mean, if
it
all
it
things
is
considered,
smart.
because
It's
like
innovative. It's
because
something that
they're
I
not
would have never thought
necessarily.
of.
It's because like
They're
again,
not
like
dead.
they're not dead. Yeah, like they're just
Yeah.
filled with rage. So like they're which takes point in the whole baby story. Like these people are technically not dead.
Yeah.
They're just filled with rage, and they just became animalistically rageful.
Yeah.
So like for
What?
Dr. Ian to just be able to use his medical expertise to
Right.
understand how to subdue someone, like, and put someone under, like, yeah, I would use that in a situation
Very,
to survive.
very innovative writing. I
Mm-hmm.
thought they did a really, really nice job with the Samson Dr. Kellen thing and him explaining that. What did you think of the whole, like, seeing when in the whole, which I thought it was shot really well, the whole red light when we see the picture kind of doused in red light and we see the infected hunting at night when they're hunting the deer. Like, I
That's
think
scary.
that's kind of cool, right? It was
Yeah.
scary, and also just the concept of, like, they have to eat. They've had
Mm-hmm.
to learn to hunt
Pack hunt.
things in the middle of the night, right? Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
they're essentially pack hunters, and the alpha takes the skull of it and kind of like plants it up on the tree. That's that, like, interesting things I never would have thought of. But
Mm-hmm.
Alex Garland had said, like, one of the things they talked about when they started writing the movie was like, how have the infected lived all this time? Like, what types of
Mm-hmm.
things? Like, we see them drinking water, we see them, like they have to. They're still technically a living being, even if they're infected with this awful virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that brings me to one of the probably the
The
singular
more like
moment of the movie that I have wrestled with more than the Jimmy thing, more than the Samson or the Dr. Kellen bone temple thing. Like,
I feel like it's
I
probably
have
one of the
wrestled
biggest
with this.
question in the
It
film.
is,
Yeah.
and I still have questions, but
Mm-hmm.
I've come to terms with it. The baby and
I
the
saw that.
infected that they come upon on the train that is in the process of giving birth to her
Mm-hmm.
baby.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions. Number one, was this Samson's side piece? And did he get her pregnant while they were both infected? Because if that's the case, I don't really like that. I'm not a fan of that. I don't need to see Samson's 16 inches. Like,
If you're implying that,
like I
Danny,
don't,
like, please
I don't
clarify.
like that. That's a little too Army of the Dead. I'm not a fan there. If she was alive, or excuse me, if she was uninfected, if she was healthy, she was pregnant, she then became infected, and she naturally had the baby. That is really, really interesting. And that is something that I would love to explore more.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the moment so that let me rewind. I have questions about how she had the baby in the first place, right? Is it Samson's baby? Is it was she already pregnant before she was a zombie, before she was infected, and this is just the natural process that the human body goes through, right? B, the moment that she is giving birth when they find her, if you would have told me prior that that was in the movie, I would have been like, get out of my face. Like I that sounds stupid. But seeing it, the way it was shot, it was this moment of humanity between two mothers, right? Like we see Isla as Eric and Spike are watching, right? Like she places her hands on the infected, and there's almost this like motherhood bond moment between the two of them where like there's no rage in that moment, right? Like the infected
Mm-hmm.
is obviously scared, right? I don't know if she understands what's happening or like if she, I mean, you know, it's obviously painful. It's obviously a lot on the human body. Like, and she collapses basically as soon as the baby is out. Um, but I thought that moment was really, really interesting. I was like this moment of pureness and humanity and grace between these two very different characters, right? Like even if you look at it from Isla's perspective, she's been kind of fading in and out of not consciousness but of lucidness, of like knowing what's happening in the moment because she is starting to her mind is starting to go. But in that moment, it was like she just snapped into mom mode and to woman mode, and like this woman needs my help regardless of whether or not she's infected. And the baby ends up not being infected, which is part three. That's the whole other. I'm like, how does that make sense? Dr. Kellen does say something about like that's the beauty or that's the
Which is
magic of the
just
placenta.
such a throwaway. I think the whole baby thing was just such a throwaway thing that I wish they delved in more because like for fuck's sakes, man, I was over here sick.
Well,
I was over here like I was
I think
questioning that thing so
we
much. I'm
will.
wondering about implications, like
Yeah.
everything about this entire situation just like opened up a whole new like line of questions in regard to like
Well,
the term zombie and
yeah.
infected and birth and like
And Dr. Killen does, I mean, he obviously, again, tapping into his medical scientific background, but he says when they say, like, when they tell him that it was an infected that gave birth to that baby, he kind of pauses and he says, I wondered if that would happen. Like, you know, he kind of seems like he is intrigued by that, and he says the magic of the placenta or the power of the placenta or something
yeah.
like
So
that,
I
which
don't want
that is
to.
the placenta's job, right? To like to basically filter things that go from mom to baby.
Yeah, so I
um
don't want to. I don't want to like come off as someone that knows more than a actor trying to be a doctor. But I think I call bullshit. Um, just just
like
because
let's see
I
here,
mean, if
we're
a
gonna
woman
Google this right
has
now.
AIDS and she gives
Can a
birth to
placenta stop viruses from getting to the baby?
Not really.
We're gonna see.
The placenta acts as a physical and immunological barrier against the hematogenous transmission of viruses from mother to fetus throughout pregnancy. However, a very small number of viruses, including rubella virus, Zika virus, and cytomegalovirus, CMV, can travel across the placental barrier, generally taking advantage of conditions at certain gestational periods as the placenta develops.
But see, here's the thing though. Like, are
Look,
we really
ladies,
gonna
I'm sorry if
say?
I'm
Uh,
dumb in this.
are we really gonna say though that this very much mutated rage virus that
Uh-huh.
is unlike any, I mean, extraordinarily contagious? I find it hard to believe that the placenta can block something like that.
Like,
Rubella,
also,
okay. The cold, okay. The flu, okay. You know, whatever. But I just like, and again, it's similar to like something with The Last of Us where, Ellie becomes immune because her mom was bitten as she was in labor, right? Like, or before the
that's what
umbilical
I
cord
mean.
was
Like,
cut, right? Like,
are we getting that
it,
storyline at some point in this film? Like,
I
yeah,
kind of feel, I have a feeling that we're not done talking about the baby yet. I
yeah,
don't.
in the film,
I really feel like
28 decades
we're
later.
going to. I hope not. I think that we will dive more into the thing with the baby in the next film, or if not the next film, in the third film, because that was really really interesting. And when we walked out of the theater after seeing that, I was like, I don't know if I like that or not. Like that, like I have questions again, depending on if Samson was bending this infected woman over in the woods. I don't like that. That's too. Ugh. I'm not a fan of that. That's too. That's like giving the zombies too much psychological credit. Like I don't want to. So you're telling me that these mindless, violent rage creatures also still get aroused? Like that. Just that. Like that. It seems odd to me that
Yeah,
would
it sounds
happen.
bonkers. No, I
It
agree.
sounds really strange. Like it
I
just doesn't
agree.
sit well with me.
Mm-hmm.
But the concept of someone who was already pregnant then becoming infected and then giving birth to a baby, that is really really intriguing. And if they choose to go in that direction, I'm all for that. Like, and I think there's a lot of really interesting things that they can do with that. And honestly, other than the fact that I like the character, that's part of the reason why I'm so glad that Dr. Kelson survived the first film, because I want to see him explore that more. And I hope that we get to see him explore that a little bit more.
I mean, maybe he
Maybe,
comes back to the village. I don't know.
yeah, maybe, maybe this baby is immune.
Maybe
Maybe this
again, but
baby
like,
is the
what are
Ellie.
the what
Is
are the
the Ellie of the
implications
28
behind that?
Days Later universe.
Exactly, but where is that story gonna go at that point? Like, are we just gonna follow like a Last of Us kind of storyline, or
They
is
find a way to
this?
make antibodies. I mean, the rest of the world is still in existence. So like
Hmm.
technically they could get her out and make antibodies for it and
Yeah,
make a
but
vaccine,
the rule goes like no one can leave, and just because I say, hey, this baby came from a infected, like that's very much hearsay. Like no one in their right mind would
Yeah.
believe it, and I would assume any self-respecting, you know, higher military wouldn't just take that to
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
So, and also nobody in the fucking village knows. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't
I think
remember
he
what the
told
letter
them. I'm
says.
pretty sure he
Yeah.
told them in the letter. I
Yeah.
would have to go back and rewatch it, but somebody remind me in the comments or in the chat if I don't
Hmm.
remember if Spike told them in his letter at the end of the film that the baby
She comes
came
from
from
an
an
infected.
infected parent or not. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
I mean, do you think, I don't know, if they went in that direction? I don't think that's going to be the sole purpose of the next film. I don't.
I don't think it should
But
be. I don't know.
If they chose to go in that direction with the baby and the maybe saying that the baby was immune, say the baby got bit or got, similar to something like what happened with Frank, they get blood in their mouth or in their eye from an infected and they don't change. They don't become infected, right?
Well, that's the whole point. Like,
What do you
you
think
should
that
the baby should be immune because, like, I mean, you're going throughout. If you're going out that way, you're gonna get hit with some blood. So like, the definitely
fair?
absorb some sort of.
That's honestly I didn't even think about that. I'm a dad
Portion.
and I didn't even think about that. Like that's yeah.
Yeah, so like definitely the baby's immune for fuck's sakes. But again, what are the implications behind
Do you think if they went in that direction and they're like, okay, they're going to try to get antibodies or whatever, a vaccine out of the baby, do you think that's like too overdone in like the zombie lore though? Like that
that?
they
Yes.
need to go in a different direction?
Yeah. I would
Because
agree.
I kind of feel like that's, yes, you could do that. And yes, it makes sense to do that. But also like, that's so The Last of Us or so Resident Evil. Like it just, that feels very stereotypical for a zombie story, you know what I mean? And this film was anything but stereo. I mean, this thing, but and the whole this franchise breaks stereotypes, right? Like 28 Days Later broke the zombie stereotype. It's part of what it and Resident Evil in combination are kind of what brought zombies back into the horror limelight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it broke boundaries in regards to what typical zombie tropes are, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to say what I'm feeling right now, but the baby storyline feels almost like a cop out a little bit of just trying to push the same narrative in regards to a apocalyptic zombie world. Um,
It was just for me. It was the combination of the fact that the baby was born and it was not infected, and B, the fact that there was that moment where Isla and the infected mother were like holding hands and like she was like helping
well,
her
that
give birth, and there
that
was
I
that
kind
moment of
of
like humanity,
like
and
that.
someone
I
else pointed
understand.
out that zombie looked scared. Like, do you think the woman looked scared that was giving birth? Like she didn't understand what was happening? I
Yeah,
could see
because
that.
they're going back to their like very much primal adolescence
Yeah.
sense
Like
of
giving
being.
birth is about as primal as it like as primal and human as it gets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I never experienced it, like, but like giving birth is probably one of the most, if not the most difficult thing a woman can go through.
Bro, I
So
watched my wife do it, and I
yeah,
don't know how they do that.
so
I don't get it. I don't know how
so
y'all do
that
it.
I totally understand like the whole humanity part between mother and mother helping another give birth, like because again these people are not like zombies, they're just people infected with rage. So my question always comes back to like, can the rage be extinguished or
Right.
removed or anything like that?
Cured.
Because like we've seen, yeah, cured. Because I mean we've seen two things that can subdue rage, which is just straight morphine or
Yeah.
the excruciating pain of giving birth, and now giving birth. Like the ways around, not around, but the ways of like mitigating the rage in the infected has been brought up at least 3 times in this film, and I think that's a really big thing to not miss because I feel like that's going to be explored a little bit more in the coming sequels.
Yeah.
All that to be said, yes, the storyline will probably follow more of Spike, Jimmy, and Jamie, and Ian, and all that other stuff. And who knows? Maybe they might switch to completely different people, like because it seems like they've done that a couple of times.
Right.
So, but I feel like these they like it's really important for the narrative of the movie of like how
Right.
people are
I
being
get what you're
affected
saying.
by the zombies, but like
Yeah.
for us to just you know not to say go over the top, because we're in a zombie apocalypse, like that's all over the top. But like again, not trying to get to a whole like Resident Evil and Zack Snyder's uh, Army of the Dead, like I understand that these people are quote unquote zombies, but they're not necessarily zombies because the zombies are the undead, and these people are not dead. They're just filled with rage. But still, we
Yeah.
label them as zombies, which is cool, and I'm still all for calling it a certain. I'm okay with calling it a facet of zombies, but at the same time, like these aren't necessarily zombies. So
Hey,
okay,
hey, don't you
a
disagree with me on that?
a I think that in regards to like yes, I do agree like these people do act like zombies, but like
There's something
this
more to
this
them than a
movie
traditional
this
zombie.
movie definitely should challenge your
It
statements
does. It does.
on what it is to be a zombie because of everything that we've seen from the mother and the baby and the way morphine affects these people because moving forward like these things have to be addressed and I hope
Yeah.
they're addressed properly. So I hope you take this movie and I hope you see it again and take some time to like reflect on some things that you were saying. um 28 weeks later, 28 days later, 100%, like these people would definitely be considered zombies. But this one doesn't. This one kind of challenges that notion.
So you're saying they've evolved from a zombie into something else,
I
like
wouldn't
something
even say.
more.
I would not even say evolved. Like I don't think they necessarily evolved. Um, I think that this is pushing the narrative of these people are not of how like the movie has treated them as not people, but they
Yeah.
are in fact people. They are just infected with rage.
Right. Yeah.
So there you go, man. I'm gonna challenge you on that right
Yeah.
now.
Listen. If anything, 28 years later, I keep going back to saying it surprised me, and it did. It surprised me for a number of reasons, in both good and bad ways. I wouldn't even say bad ways. In unexpected ways. I won't say bad ways. It I the Jimmy thing has thrown me off, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little concerned about where they're going to go with that. I'm concerned that we have all of these things, like there's the things with Spike and Dr. Kellen and the baby and the infected and all of what you just talked about and what all of the like the implications of what an infected giving birth to an uninfected baby means. Like, there's all of these interesting things. The concept of the UK being quarantined and the rest of the world just living life as normal, and the idea of there being like the whistleblower trying to get information. Like, there's so many cool things that I want addressed and that I want to focus on in the next two films. And I'm really concerned that like we're just going to focus on this weird cult Jimmy group, and all of that other stuff is going to fall by the wayside. And that's I guess what I'm that's what I hope not too. That's what I'm concerned about, but I'm optimistic. And the fact that this film did catch me off guard and did surprise me and did showcase things that I didn't expect it to, and the fact that it succeeded in ways that I didn't expect it to, does give me hope for what they're going to do with Bone Temple and the third film, whatever they will end up being called. I'm going to be real. I kind of hope they change the name, the Bone Temple. It seems a little like okay, like why is it called what do you find a I don't know. I'm not a fan of that title.
I'm sure
They could
I'm
find
sure
a
it's
better
just
title.
a working title.
Yeah, the
Who
working
knows?
title kind of
And
thing.
also,
Yeah.
like, again, like, who knows what this sequel's gonna do? It could be a totally different storyline for all I fucking know. It
Yeah.
could just jump into fucking Jim with Killian Murphy or something like that. Like, I don't know. I mean,
I
I'm
will
sure
say
there
they
is.
they did Danny Boyle did kind of confirm that like Jim is not in this movie until like
By the way,
last third.
what
Like
a giant like ball buster because wasn't
know.
like wasn't 28 years later like teased to have Killian Murphy?
yes, like the whole like draw was like Killian Murphy's coming back for the whole trilogy, and then it was like
Mhm.
he's not in 28 years later very
Is
much. And then it
Killian
was
in
like,
the room with
he's
us right
he's
now?
not in 28 years later at all. And then he was like, but he's gonna be in the Bone Temple. He's in the next film. And then he was like, but you got to wait for him. He's only in the last third of the movie. I was like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
At
Like,
this point, I don't
give
even
us,
want
give
Cillian
us,
Murphy.
give us Killian.
At this
I,
point,
I
kinda
will
don't.
say,
The man's gonna be really fucking old by
I
this film.
really hope that he is not a part of the Jimmy group. I don't want that. I really don't. And B, I really hope that we see Selena and Hannah come back too. And hopefully they're keeping that a secret. But I mean, because obviously he was with them at the end of the first film. Like, I think it would be very strange for Jim to come back and never address what happened to Selena and Hannah. Like, that
Yeah.
seems odd to me. Like, we
Yeah.
would have to address what happened to them at some point. But overall, I am going to give 28 Years Later an 8.7, which is awesome. I like that's a good score for me. Like, I think, it, as I said, it surprised me. It satisfied me in most of the ways that I wanted to. You want to know my biggest gripe of the movie? Not even kidding you. I'm a music guy. The fact that they didn't use In the House in the Heartbeat in the movie. Like, they needed to replace the score at the end of the movie when we see Spike like looking at the infected, like when he sees them and he's
bravo to
like
these
making the
people
fish.
who play the infected.
I know. Could you do that? Like running
No.
around at like spazzing it? Like I couldn't.
couldn't.
I couldn't do it all the time. Like I feel like
Yeah,
it'd get
yeah.
really like
Like,
difficult to do
I
that.
couldn't do any of the anybody who has played a zombie in a zombie film. Bravo to you guys. I think that's pretty hard to do, all things considered. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, there's been some really cheap renditions of zombies, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know, being infected and 28 Days Later franchise, that takes some. I don't know.
Yeah.
That takes some like called panache.
Or the
for,
walkers in The Walking Dead and all of that makeup
yeah,
and prosthetics
yeah.
in the Georgia heat.
Mm-hmm. No, I
You
agree.
know that it's got to be
Fucking
musty
hard.
and crusty and dusty. All I mean, just swampy all up underneath that. Like
No, I
gross.
believe it. Yeah.
But yeah, I really like this film a lot, and I I liked it. I thought it did a lot of things really well, and it leaves me excited for what comes next. And I think
Yeah.
it was a worthy sequel to two films that I hold very near and dear to me. Especially that first film. I mean, 28 Days Later it's great. I lent my physical copy to my dad. He was gonna rewatch them before he went and saw 28 Years, and he loves them too. Which he's a horror fan like I am. So, what's your final score for 28 Years Later, Miguel?
It's
Miguel.
it's definitely an 8.5 for me. It's a pretty solid film in and of itself, and also holds itself well in regards to the franchise alone. Like, I don't feel like any of the installments of this franchise have been weak. Obviously, you could rank them in regards of like what's better than the other, but like all three of them hold themselves well.
How would you rank it right now if you had to rank all three? Go. Don't think about it. Just rank it.
28. I mean, obvious. I don't know. 1, 3, and 2. There you go.
Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the first one is pretty like. I feel like the first one's pretty untouchable in terms of like what it did. Like,
I don't
it's
know.
scary. Like it's scary. It's
I could-
very aesthetically off-putting. This one didn't have, which I think that's another thing we didn't really touch on is they tried to. They tried like the whole Boots poem, Boots, moving up and down again, Boots. Like that whole like including that in the marketing, fantastic. When we see or we hear that as Spike and
Jamie.
what's his name? Jamie. As Spike and Jamie are leaving their little gated community, like that worked really well. they should have used In the House in a Heartbeat, but what do I know? I'm not the music director for the film. Anyways, like they tried to throw in these little aesthetic like extra pieces of film, like we saw like the medieval army and stuff. That didn't necessarily work for me. I don't know why they threw all of that in. And I know it's supposed to just be off-putting and weird and quirky, but like, I don't know. It was excessive. Like there were a few points where, like in the action, like it was a chase sequence or something like that. It may have been in the, no, it wasn't in the lead up to the Alpha chase sequence. What? There was an action sequence in the film that was beautiful. That was incredible. We'll talk about that in a second. There was a sequence where it was like a chase scene or an action scene with the infected, and there were these just like weird medieval scenes like popping in and out in black and white, and it was just like on an old film reel, and it was just like what? Like I don't know if there was some type of like reference or I'm sure there's a purpose for putting that in there that I'm just not that I'm just not getting, but I thought that was a little odd, and it didn't. I don't think it aesthetically this didn't carry the same weight of the first two films, but that's okay. It worked again. It worked in other ways that made up for that. But yeah, we didn't really even talk that first Alpha chase sequence in the with the stars and the moonlight and the water, and that was amazing. That was insane. Like 10 out of 10. That was great.
Yeah.
It was a really really intense, emotional scene. So
Screensaver worthy.
Screensaver worthy, 100%. Guys, let us know your thoughts on Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's 28 years later. Do you have predictions for the Bone Temple? What do you all think is going to happen in these next two films? There's the doors open for a lot of different things that could or could not happen, and I hope that they choose to go in the right direction. I'm confident that they will. I mean, obviously they waited. Danny Boyle said the reason that he had never chosen to do a sequel to 28 Days Later was because he felt like, or the first two films was because he felt like he never had the right story, and he was like, I finally feel like we have the right story to tell over the course of these three films. So, it makes sense, and I trust them to tell the story that they think they need to tell with their franchise. So let us know your thoughts on the movie. Let us know your predictions in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give us a like. Follow us on social media. Our handles there at LTM Podcast KY. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to do so. We are, like I said, the goal is to do live stream 1 week, standalone content, whether that's a short form video, something the next week. And again, thank you guys for sticking with us and for still being a part of the fam, even though we haven't been posting quite a bit, but hopefully that'll change in the next few weeks. So thank you. Have an awesome rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.